Hello my friends, my name is Patty. Please feel very welcome to this new video that is gonna be a little bit personal, if you can tell by the title. And I guess I want to say that first of all, I don't really expect everyone that has been harmed by religion to end up wanting to go through a reconnecting process. This is just something like this video I'm mainly making for people like myself or for like my past self, because I did end up wanting to reconnect with spirituality, which I see as different from religion, even though they're connected and all. But I do think there's a difference. So I don't consider myself to be religious, even though I did for some time of my life. But I do consider myself to be spiritual, if that makes sense. So I come from, like, my background is that I come from a very conservative, tight-knit, red flag, tight-knit Catholic community, and I ended up not staying in that religion for many reasons. But when I was younger, I was actually very religious. I felt very connected. I thought about being a nun, and now I just, like, it's just funny to remember, like, how committed I was to it. But it's also kind of funny how I'm still very committed clearly to so many things. So I wanted to make this video for people who find themselves a little bit lost because they have been harmed by religion, they feel a little heartbroken about it, and they would still want to connect somehow with like a higher purpose, or, you know, like, feel in themselves like the unity of people, of life, or whatever. Spirituality means different things for different people. But this video is basically for you, or maybe you just want to stay informed, which is also super amazing and super great. So thank you for sharing space with me. Okay, so I first want to start with the part of the video that I'm gonna call the foreplay, which is I want to talk to you about like some, like, two important principles that I think that I would want people to have in mind when they're trying to go through this process. The first one is like, try to, well, I'm gonna say like some like prompt questions, because to me journaling has been a huge way for me to reconnect with this. But first of all, like, understand what it was about religion that broke your heart. You know, like, I like to start out with the shadow parts, with like shadow work. Like, what exactly was it about religion that broke your heart? For me personally, I think it was kind of like being a bit close-minded, you know, like not being open to try to know like different sides of things. I am very, like, I like that, so that was a very, like, a huge deal breaker for me. Other things that broke my heart, I guess, were yeah, I guess just like how dogmatic it all was, and like all the things that happened within the religion that were being denied. So a lot of like denial and like taking sides, and like us versus them mentality and all of that, like those things definitely broke my heart. So like those are things that, like, keep in, like, what was it for you, you know? Because that's another thing, like, this has to be a very personal way, you know? You're healing yourself, you know, as you're healing your relationship with with spirit, with God, with whatever you want to call it. And the second thing, oh, and very important about the shadow work. So you first gotta think about what about religion broke your heart, and then I would think it's very interesting and very important to think about how you still have those elements within you, which is another, like, big part. So for example, I was once in a therapy session, and I was talking with my therapist, and she brought to my attention how the things I was saying, like, even though I considered it myself at that point like a hardcore atheist, the way I was speaking about life and like my beliefs sounded very religious. And she was like, this is kind of odd, you know? Like, for example, one of the ideas that I had was like that there was just like one correct path that I could take in my life, and I was very afraid that I would like get to the end of my life and be super upset and disappointed about taking the wrong path. and like she brought to my attention how like those ideas of like the wrong path, like they were very similar to the idea of like hell and like making the wrong choices, you know, like there is like secretly one type of truth out there, and you may like mess up if you don't find it, you know. That is still kind of like a religious pattern, and it's very, very important that while you're doing this work of trying to reconnect, you first need to understand what exactly was that pushed you away in the first place, you know. So those things are very important. And the second thing that I would think it's very important to keep in mind is that the connection that you had when, like, for me, for my example, my story when I was younger, that I was very felt very close to God and very connected, like that was real, you know. Like maybe not the meaning or the what I assigned that I believed in, you know, like maybe that's the part that could be questioned, changed, whatever. But the fact that I felt a very deep connection, that I felt very specific feelings about it, those were real, you know. I experienced those feelings were valid, real, and everything. So that's another part, you know, to kind of untangle, to kind of know how to separate the feelings that you had and how you felt and what you were looking for from the meaning you assigned to it in the object of those feelings. You know, you need to kind of understand what about it exactly was that you liked, what about it exactly was that you felt connected to. That's another very important part to keep in mind during this process that you're going through, you know. And most of the time you will find that you can get those feelings back, and you can get that sense and that mindset and everything that you felt that was helpful, but maybe assigning it to a different thing or a different concept or whatever you call it. So that was a little foreplay I wanted to give you, and then I want to talk about the steps that I took. So a very important step for me was to get informed about a very different religion or a very different set of beliefs than the ones that I had. So this was when I was like a hardcore atheist, and I was very brokenhearted about everything that had to do with God, with like spirit, anything. Like I did not want to know about that. But I started to get interested in meditation, and I found Buddhist that I can't sorry, I cannot pronounce that in English. Buddhism. I found that. So I started to get informed about that and like read what were the principles, what was the kind of like the point of view from it all. And it was, in many ways, it was very similar to like the Jesus story. It was very like the unconditional love, and like you know, like your enemy might be like they're also part of you, like all of that part. It was similar, but in other ways it was different. Like it wasn't so like God-centered. It was more like you can also achieve that status in a way. So it had its different elements that were very interesting to read for me and like find, because it also resonated with other parts of the things that I had been thinking about. So it was very interesting to know that other people had taken it into consideration, and it was also very interesting to see like how many things they have in common, you know, because that also helps you to build kind of like a more solid foundation of what you're gonna believe in. You know, if a lot of cultures are repeating a certain pattern and you also kind of feel like it's true and it makes you feel a certain way, like I would say that that's a good indicator. Which brings me to the second point, which would be make like about your feelings, you know, like how you feel, because that is, like, as I said, you might not be sure that what you connected to was a certain God or a certain whatever, but I think you can be very sure and very certain that you felt certain feelings about that. So your feelings are going to be a very important part of this path that you're going to take. So you're going to have to like really respect your feelings and listen to them. Like some people might feel like their feelings are often something that betrays them, and they have a hard time connecting to them because they feel like they're gonna take over or something. Those are important things to address, I think, because slowly when you start to understand the way your feelings work, you're gonna be able to discern like from what is what. So that's gonna be a very important part of the process. Work with your feelings and try to like heal a bit that part. You know, you can't really heal your connection to like a bigger or like to spiritual, which is very, very emotional based, if you still feel like you are very, very hurt and you have things to heal. You're gonna have to see how those two things are connected in some way. I personally have healed many emotional problems that I have through all of this like spiritual practices, so they can help each other. They can be like a little bit of, you know, but I would say like it's definitely very important to look to heal emotionally too, to be able to have a better connection with the spiritual. Like they go kind of hand in hand. And this is gonna be a very personal path, you know, because maybe at some point you were indoctrinated into a certain belief system, and now you have in your hands the opportunity to from scratch like choose what exactly you wanna believe in. There's people who would say you can't really choose what you believe in, but you know what I mean. Like you're gonna have the power in your hands to get informed about very different positions and very different things that resonate directly with who you are as a person. So this is gonna have to be a very personal path. And that also has been very healing for me, to find out that there have always been people who actually prefer having a personal relationship with God. I say like in quote unquote like I do me it, but like I have a certain way to say God that I don't really mind if people are like that's not really God. It's like fine, you know. So I'm just gonna like use the quote. But like for example, learning about mystics. Mystics are people sometimes within organized religions, sometimes independently, that try to find a personal connection with God and try to find a personal relationship, which to me is the most important part. That has been amazing to me, because through building that is how I feel I get like a lot of revelations and insights that I think are super useful to my own path. And like, so I would say that is a very important part, you know, like personalize it. This is about you, this is your relationship. Some would say that like God is yourself, so like this is it's gonna be your own relationship with your feelings, with yourself, and obviously how you like how that translates to who you are in essence, I guess we would say, because some other people would say like, oh, but you're not like yourself, you're also like other people and you're connected and blah blah blah. So like it depends on how you want to see it, honestly, but the point remains the same. This is gonna be a very like, you're gonna have to tune in your intuition and kind of listen to the way you understand, you know, because another way I see religion is as a language. So I can read books from different religions, I can have insights from very different types of beliefs, and I'm still gonna be able to know what they're talking about, you know, like even though they might appear as like they're very different kinds of ways of thinking, I don't think they are, because I kind of know, you know, like I kind of like I have my own like solid foundation, my own personal relationship, so I am able to like fit them all in their own way, which I think is cool, because it has also allowed me to open my mind. And as I said before, one of the things that broke my heart about religion was like I felt how my heart and my mind was being a little bit closed off. And that brings to the third point, that like yes, like that process of going through religion, it closed my heart in a way, you know, like it closed my mind and made me heartbroken. So just like thinking about religion, thinking about God, like all of that was very like it hurt, you know, like I did not have good feelings associated with it, at least not anymore, you know, like at some point I did, but right now was just like I was so angry, I did not want to know anything about that. So I would say that the third very important step is to forgive, you know, like go through the process, like forgive the belief system you were part of it. Like try to understand, like as I said, you don't have to believe in it again at all, but you can try to understand where they're coming from. To me, it was very useful to read about Buddha and then go back to read about Jesus, because then I could connect how those two were, like I could connect to the essence of the message, because those two can be very different, but if you look at the similarities, like it was easier for me to see how there were truths to the things that I believed before. So I didn't feel, you know, like there's not like, it's not like complete BS in a way. You just need to know how to interpret it and find a way in which you can connect and resonates with you. Because I would say that a very important part of this process is that like that belief system is still very much a part of my family, you know? So to connect with them and to talk with them, I had to understand what things meant to them, you know? Because that's another way, that's a very important thing in spirituality, like being able to connect to your roots and like your ancestor work and like to my ancestors. Like I have many different ancestors, you know, but like to a lot of them, this like Jesus story, Trinity, like all of that was a very important part of their beliefs. So I had to like give them new meaning, you know, now with my personal relationship, and kind of like find a way in which it fits for me. And now I can talk to many members of my family and I don't feel offended when they bring up God. There was a point when I did. I felt very offended. But now I just like kind of try to understand what they mean. You know, like I connected to the feelings that I feel, and I'm like, oh, this is really nice that you feel those feelings too about something, you know, that something makes you want to love more and whatever. So those are the tips that I would give to heal your relationship and like reconnect with spirituality. But as I said, this is a very, very personal process. These are some things that I would want to share from my own insights, but honestly, there's no wrong way to do this, and it could take years, it could take weeks, like, or minutes, like, I don't know. But thank you so much for watching, and I don't know, consider watching other videos or subscribe. Thank you.